I'm David Hunt and welcome to The Art Hunter. Melbourne is well known for it being a grid city, and my guest today can't get grids out of her mind. She's obsessed with them. You know, she walks around drawing things on the... No, I'm now picking on her. Her extraordinary style of painting blows your mind when you see it. You can see it behind me now. The detail, the textures, the colours, the forms. Universally trained at Melbourne Uni, and her paintings capture and shifts of light that it really takes you on a journey, even though you're not sure where the journey is taking you. It's a real crossover effect it gives you. The tiny squares, it must take her forever to paint these tiny little squares. So let's get into this mind that's full of little tiny little squares and grids. Julia, hello.
Hi, David. Hi.
Now, you know, like, where did it all start for you as an artist?
Yeah, as in
generally.
VC. Oh, generally, bit of a late starter. Obviously, I did it all through. High school, etc. But late starter, got into VCA, Victorian College of the Arts, in about my late 20s.
Okay, why did you wait that long?
Oh, I was doing other things and
weren't sure what you wanted to do.
And father, my large family, 6 girls, and my father was just adamant that we didn't get into the arts. He's like, well, how are you going to support yourself?
Yeah, well,
what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So go and do something, be a nurse, be a secretary, be a this, be a that, librarian. So I went on and did other things. And then it was the right time. And I'm really glad I did it at that time. So yeah, VCA was a really fantastic experience.
And would it have been a good time? You know, like when you would have known yourself a lot better.
Yes, 100%.
You know, like as a 19-year-old going straight from school.
Exactly. Yeah, I look at 19-year-olds now and you know nothing. You know, as in you're such babies.
Yeah.
So it's great.
And so where did you start to create your form, this very interesting form?
Probably in my 3rd year at VCA. I was really looking at all the modernist architecture around Melbourne and internationally, and I was painting a lot of architectural type.
Okay.
Yeah, like Mies van der Rohe in Chicago, and sort of very much that grid, but they were realistic paintings of architecture.
Yeah.
So I kept delving into that, and it was only when I left art school that I started thinking about, well, I wanted to kind of experiment with the picture plane. I was getting a bit tired of mucking around with looking into the picture frame. I wanted to do the blocking, playing with that picture frame a little bit more. Because normally architecture is kind of filling the space. It's there. It's like a tree, a cloud, a piece of architecture. And so I just wanted to, back to that. I wasn't sure I was heading into abstraction as such, but I wanted to bring the painting to the surface.
So when did that moment come when these tiny squares that you've got, that we're seeing all around us, like, when did you think, that's where I'm going to go? Was there a light?
Well, there's an evolution. So really, I started with this spiral system. It's like lots of different systems and play. Start with the spiral system, start with the pencil in the middle, go around and then join the lines.
Yeah.
And then that ended up with a wonky grid. So that's one of my first wonky grids, and I just kept going until they've ended up getting smaller and smaller. I'm not sure why. But yeah,
well, that's
they
more
were
hard
small.
work for you too,
yeah,
isn't
there
it?
it is. Yeah, but I've got a rotating easel. So yeah, they've always changed depending on why I'm painting them at the time, and why I'm doing it is always different.
And why is it? Give us an example of what's your thought pattern when you start?
Yeah, it's a lot of art history. Say, for example, a whole show I did was all based on the modernist female painters, Grace Cossington-Smith, Grace Crowley, Margaret Preston. So I really kind of started looking into the DNA of their paintings and looking at their colours and forms, and that started me really. That's a great starting point to then see where you can go next. I always need something like that. It might not, no one else would know that that's the case, but it's just something that gets me going. And investigating, getting right down into the Grace Cossington-Smith, for example.
Now, with them being so small now, you know, like I have seen some of your larger ones where it would have been a lot more easier for you. You've taken yourself, you know, like you're punishing yourself. With, are you?
Look, that's the thing about art. I mean, there's a lot of labour involved, and I like to acknowledge the labour. I think the process of painting is kind of a form of it's action, and you know that it's laborious, but it's part of it, and I enjoy that part of it.
And do you find that when you're painting, you know, like for this is me as a novice, and a lot of our audience, is that you lose yourself in what you're doing?
Oh, 100%. With this latest work, I start at the bottom of the canvas and I'm not sure where I'm going. So in the past, I'd have a fair idea of what I'm trying to achieve, but this latest group, it's very much I'm climbing up the canvas. And these kind of little tricks or plays that I do are really important to allow me to kind of get on to the next one. How long would one take? Oh, that's a bit hard to tell. Probably a couple of months, because you're doing others in between.
You keep on coming back.
Depends if I do layers.
You know, like, you know, you hear it so often. A lot of artists say, "I've never really finished painting that."
No.
You're like that?
Yeah, 100%. You've got to let them out the door.
No, don't take it. There's a couple of little spots I want.
Oh, I think, no, everyone would be exactly the same like that. You always, you think, I can make this better. I can do a better job of it.
But, you know, like, can you? Or
no, probably not. You just stuff it up,
and, you know, like, and that's the key, is when to stop.
Exactly.
Is when to stop. Now, you've moved it away from a lot of just the real grid, where it's block. And you're doing this sort of, it's almost as if it's a mountain range.
Like I don't mind how you see them. Obviously, I can't be in control of how the viewer sees something.
Of course.
But these were ones... I reread, there's a book by Italo Calvino called Invisible Cities. And so it's coming back to the city. And so it's an amazing book written in the 70s. And it's all about Marco Polo catching up with Kublai Khan and discussing and telling Kublai Khan about where he's been and what he's seen. But he makes it all up. So he makes it all up. And so all of these cities are absolutely these fantastic, incredible, imaginary cities that really are all actually about Venice, where he comes from. But he doesn't tell Kublai Khan that. So he's never been anywhere. So he puts forward the idea that Marco Polo never travelled, that basically it was all just imaginary. So it's a fantastic book, Invisible Cities. So that got me going on this lot. I'm a big reader and I listen to audiobooks when I paint. So that kind of set me up for these kind of imaginary cities, invisible cities. But people see them however they want, you know. So.
But, you know, like, I would find with somebody the intensity that you would be feeling when you're painting, that those audiobooks, do you really hear them?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure whether I paint to listen to the audiobooks or audiobook to paint, so the two get very
blurred
mixed up.
And you all of a sudden think you end up going on that journey that you're listening to?
Yeah, exactly. So, or not, because so it's a real listening, and therefore the painting act is quite without thought, which is great, because you're released from that idea of thinking.
Now, you do a lot of solo shows. You've done quite a few over the years. How intense is that, you know, like, as an artist, you know, like getting ready for, how many pieces during a solo show?
I feel comfortable. I work in a small space. I've always worked from home. Well, mostly. And so it usually takes me a couple of years to have enough work to show about. So it's 20 to 30 works.
Right.
And that's when I sort of know. I say, Scott, the studio's full. And,
so a couple of years. Wow. And have you, you know, sort of booked a time to be in a gallery?
No, generally not. It's just a feeling. I just say to Scott, I think I'm ready, and if there's a space, there's a space. If not, or he might say, I've got a spot here. Or,
And who's Scott?
Scott Livesey Galleries in High Street, Pran. So I've shown with Scott. This is my 7th show with Scott.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do because I've spoken to a couple of curators on the show and gallery owners. You know, like, how important is it working with a gallery and people you get to know and the curators that would be there?
Oh, yeah, it's just a really great relationship, basically. You want everything to work. I mean, but artists complain about everything, I find. So I really pull back from that. But it is all about relationship and someone understanding your work and how you work.
Yeah.
But before that, I was running it. I was in artist-run spaces, etc. So, you know, there's a nice balancing act.
Yeah.
I always hang my own show because I always feel that it's actually really part of my work, how they're hung. So that's really important.
And
to
they're
me.
okay with that? You know,
100%, because I'm almost like got a grid with it, you know, a grid, you know, taking control of it. Yeah,
right.
So.
And what about when you're in a group exhibition? How do you tackle that? You know, like, are you want to know who else is involved?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've been in a couple where. It's like-minded people maybe, or someone's put the show together with a similar kind of sensibility. I haven't done a lot of group shows lately. So
you know, like, here you are with this amazing formation that you create in your work, and colours play a big part, don't they? Because the colours take you on the journey with the painting. And are you aware of what you're going to do? You say you start at the bottom and then let it unfold. Of what colour palette you're going to take?
General idea. It might just be a tiny component of a Pompeii landscape. And I say, this is going to be very umber, based, or very. Sort of those sort of earthy tones, and it might just be a tiny little impetus that gets me then going, and then I try and stick to that. So it's just really, each painting's very different in that way, what I kind of latch on to.
And has there been times when you've, and I've asked this of other artists, where you've painted something, you go, hold on, I think I've done that before? Oh,
yes, I think so, especially with my work. But having said that, to me, they're very different. I always get the feeling that the viewer might think, it's just another grid painting. But for me, I know the difference. So I know that I was looking at something in a different way. Like I might have gridded it up with a ruler in that case, and then I've got another one that I didn't grid with a ruler, and you look at them and then I think they're exactly the same, but I know they're completely different. So there's all these different sort of tricks that I use to keep myself kind of give the chance, kind of have a go at.
So like the squares were a lot bigger.
Yes.
Why did you feel that you needed to go smaller?
Well, that's a good question actually, because with the larger, I was using a lot of glazing techniques, which is kind of from Renaissance type glazing. So I'd be using things like 4 or 5 layers of paint in one square.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then with lots of waxes and things, so it's got a very kind of, when you see them in the flesh, they've got a real kind of depth to them, each square. So
and there were sometimes there weren't all that many squares.
No, that's right. So even sort of 12 or 14, quite reduced. And so each square had its own little life, different form of painting.
And so because you would have been bringing a colour within each one.
That's right.
So each square would have been its own painting.
That's right. So and each square would have a different form of a glazing technique. So I'm looking at a lot of impressionist work, for example, or a lot of technical sort of stuff when it comes to painting.
Right.
Because oil painting's really unusual, isn't it?
And so, like, was it your training when you went to uni that gave you that insight, or did you have to do a lot of research? Well, it's funny
that because they train at VCA, everyone will say that they don't really teach you how to paint. There's none of that. This is not how you paint. You have to kind of work that out yourself. And what happened was I did VCA, not VCA, Pran College. I think they call it foundation year. I did a couple of months of that, and Tony Clark, the artist, gave me a printout of how to do old master techniques. I've still got it.
Wow.
And I just started playing around with that. It was really interesting. It's an 80s thing. Started the 80s. It's kind of postmodernism, you know, pastiche of different styles and techniques. So that really got me going, thinking about oil painting as a different thing, not just a patch of colour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, like a lot of artists are still learning from artists from hundreds of years ago.
100%. The lineage is there. Like, that's what you're always grabbing onto. That's what you've got. That's it. This lineage of amazing that you can go back and you can, you know, research and see what people are doing. Yeah.
And do you enjoy that research?
100%. Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah,
you know, like curators, people at the NGV who are, you know, with history art. You know, like their knowledge and their understanding of what was happening in that era. You know, it's almost a case of, I think, that we all, as a non-artist, we need to read a little bit more about the history of art.
Yeah. So if you go and see the Van Gogh show at NGV, it was amazing. So there was just so much to see in that show. One of my favourites.
And also the fact that he sold one painting in his life, and it was to his brother. And it was then his brother's wife that made him famous. Obviously, after him and his brother were dead. But you know, like all those really interesting stories. What's your legacy?
Oh God! Oh, the grid lady. Oh, I don't think like that. Yeah.
You don't want to, you know, think that, you know, in 50, 100 years' time.
No, I don't really. I think like that's part of the labour. I mean, it's just a day at a time thing. I really believe. I don't really think too much future and too much past. I kind of mean a lot of us just struggle being in the now, and that for me is just the labour. So I enjoy that. That's kind of, I grab onto that. Yeah.
I actually veered off from where we were going with the larger squares and reducing them. Was that just an organic thing that was going to happen?
100% organic, It just felt good. I'd done some smaller squares possibly, I think, 20 years ago. I looked back at them and thought, oh right, I wouldn't mind looking at that in a different way. And because I'm just painting almost one layer for these latest ones, they're much looser, and I'm not lining up anything. I'm not using pencils.
So it's all freehand?
All completely free form.
That's
so that to me is what's starting at the bottom. I've got no idea. That's really liberating for me, and that's been great. That's fabulous.
It would be as well, and you know, like, but a real feeling of achievement. You would walk, you know, step away from you know, 3 or 4 hours of doing it and go, wow, I'm really happy with that.
Or not, or
what do you do if you not? Do you paint over it?
Oh no, not at all, because everything's fixable. Like, because it's all about how you see. It's all about harmony, really, the picture plane and how everything works with the eye. So you get better at that. I think that's what practice is. You know?
But what about a lot of the masters where, you know, like with the X-rays now, they zoom in and they realise there's another painting underneath.
That's right, Da Vinci was always kind of going over everything, and it happens.
So you've never done anything like that?
Oh, I have repainted it, but I just see them the same painting, just with different, technically different things that I've applied, or, you know, painting style,
Okay, here you are. You've set yourself up. You know, like, and had a lot of exhibitions. Congratulations!
Oh, thank you.
And done quite well out of it. You know, where can you see yourself in another 5 or so years? Are you going to go back to bigger, or will you, or will it become even smaller?
I think I'll always do a little bit of both, because it's kind of that push and pull of what I happen to be looking at, investigating. I might look at something and say, oh, this really would work with a larger grid. Or maybe I'll revisit a Mies van der Rohe building and say, I just want to revisit it. I did it at art school. Let me see what would come out if I did it now. So it's that,
that's
looking
good,
back.
good
and then
pattern.
I'll be a different painting, because I'm a different person, you know. So I paint them, so it's different. I'm different.
When you've got an exhibition on, do you actually like talking about your art in front of an audience?
I'm I find it interesting that people really want to know. Because it's hard, because abstraction, you know, is it abstract? It's very hard to talk about abstraction, because I think it's hard for people to understand it if you don't have a background in visual arts, maybe. So they want to know,
Well,
and they
me,
see. That's right.
yeah.
And they, I don't know if you pareidolia. Is that pareidolia? Where you see things, you imagine you see things in something.
Yep.
Funny faces
Yep,
or whatever.
yeah, or the Jesus in a
that's
piece of
right.
toast.
The piece of toast. It's pareidolia, something like that. So people want that all the time. They because maybe it's because they're uncomfortable with abstraction. They want to say what they see, which is fine. Because I can't, that's the viewer. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. It's great.
Yeah. But I also, you will look at something, and I've said this before, where I'm not sure about it, and I'm going.
Oh, that's right.
But then if the artist or a curator explains it to me, I go on a totally different journey, and usually
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's fantastic because that's it. That's art history, and that's the wonders of art history and the wonders of.
But also
talking,
wonders
conversing.
of you as an artist explaining. So do you do artist talks within?
I haven't done anything recently. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not?
But when I have a show, you're just generally talking to a lot of people, so I kind of do it that way, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Scott doesn't really do it.
And what about the fact of selling yourself? Because that's really hard for a lot of artists.
100%.
One of my dear friends I grew up with in Adelaide, his wife gets really angry with him because he hates the opening night and he hates going around talking to people and all that.
Really
but he
hard.
knows he's got to do it, and she's literally got to drag him by the ear and say,
don't blame him.
"Come on."
Yeah, it's really difficult. Yeah, because it's such a solo occupation. Really, you're solo all the time. You're painting. And then all of a sudden you have to be the opposite to that. So I think most artists would kind of not like it.
But what about those that, Andy Warhol and people like that? They're 15 minutes of fame.
Painting's very
but, I find that really interesting, how you're a real business, almost have to be a business person as well as. There's a lot of minds don't work that way.
Yeah, well, I'm sure nowadays at VCA they probably teach a component of that. I'm not sure. I'm not up with the curriculum, but it's probably quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Would you teach?
I like the idea of teaching, but no, I've never kind of gone that way.
Why?
I haven't needed to. I just haven't. I don't have the education for. I don't have the background in it, so I haven't. It's not
but
something
you do,
I've
though,
sought
haven't
out.
you? Haven't you?
Oh, in painting, but I think nowadays it's all very much Bachelor of Education.
Oh, okay.
It's very much.
Right.
You need to have that kind of background, which
Right.
I don't have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd love it. But, yeah.
But it means extra study, and that's
Yeah.
still
I
much
know.
to know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And I did ask you, and we didn't really get to it because I'd probably ask you another question.
Yeah, that's fine.
About another 5 or 10 years' time.
Oh, right. Yes. Well, the body has to hold up, doesn't it? You have to, because it's quite labour intensive.
And you
as
actually mentioned that you've got a rotating.
I do, yeah. I got it from Italy. It's amazing.
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's a piece.
It's an easel, and it rotates so that you can just.
Yeah, it's a little unit that goes onto my current easel, and it turns around. So that's been fabulous for me because I can do larger work. Because the smaller ones I was just using my hands, so that's a lot of hand work. That's changed. That made the big change as well for me.
And was that, you said you got it from Italy?
Yes.
Was it something that has been around for hundreds of years, or is it?
Probably. Probably. I'm not sure of the history of it, but it's one of the famous easel companies. I got it just before COVID, so that's been great.
Right. Okay.
5 years. 100% just painting, and that's the main thing. After a show, it's quite strange because you kind of stop and you're a bit lost. I'm not painting. So I have a very solid daily practice. I just paint all the time.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, when I'm not working and stuff.
Because so many people do. It's their job.
Yes,
they know they've got to go and paint for so many hours per day.
Yes.
But that must be hard when you've got other families. I'm quite intentionally have a very sort of simple life. Yeah. So that's my focus is painting. Okay.
So I remember, I don't have children or anything. I made that decision quite early.
Right.
That it was something I want to focus on because I know it's actually quite difficult to juggle, especially for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
especially for women.
Yeah.
Wow, so you're 100% dedicated
Yeah,
to
yeah.
being an artist.
Yeah, and of course, so it was like, well, it's something that I can do for the rest of my life. I'm not sort of
Although
fussed
you
about
didn't
it.
mention body.
Body, yeah, that's it. Then I'll just change technique. That's, you change things, do things differently, you know.
Yeah.
So
Are you finding it now, or is like you're still, like painting easily? It's
yes,
not. You don't go to
sure.
bed and
no,
wake
it's
up
just
the next
that,
day.
a bit of arthritis in the hands or whatever.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. You're 62 or whatever, everything starts sort of disintegrating.
And also because you're doing it so much.
Yeah. Occupational.
What's it called? It's called
repetitive strain.
Yeah. So does that worry you at all? That it might happen?
Not
Like,
really.
You can't let it, can you?
No. You just get on with it.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see where you go next.
Yeah, me too.
You haven't thought of painting on say ceramics or?
Oh yeah, I love the idea of ceramics. I love textiles. I love all the crafts. So yeah, I mean it's always there, but the painting always brings me back. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not that that sort of person that think I'll do that for 6 months and wait and see.
Not particularly. No. Yeah, because I'm so encompassed with I'm so caught up in the canvas that I just stick to that.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you. Well, congratulations
Thank you.
on an
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful career that you've
Thanks.
created.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's great.
And thank you for watching The Art Hunter. I'm David Hunt, and we'll be back again next week. See you then.